The market at Velsheri station never truly slept. Even in the dim blue hours when the artificial lighting cycled down to simulate night, merchants packed their stalls, off-world traders argued over exchange rates, and aliens of a dozen species shuffled through the narrow corridors of the lower bazaar. It was the kind of place where everyone minded their own business, because minding someone else's could get you killed. Mara Ellison minded other people's business for a living. She was leaning against a support strut near the spice corridor, sipping something hot and bitter from a ceramic cup, when she heard it, a sound that most species at Velsheri would have filtered out as background noise. A small, strangled intake of breath. The kind of sound a creature made when something sharp pressed against the soft of its throat. Mara set down her cup. She didn't run. Running caused panic, and panic caused crowds, and crowds gave raiders cover. She walked, fast, deliberate, quiet, slipping between a Viraki cloth seller and a Denari food cart, turning left at the junction where the lighting was worst, following the sound. She found them in the alcove behind the water reclamation unit. The raider was Berthaki, 7 feet of scaled muscle, with a ridge of bone spurs running from his skull down his spine. He wore the charcoal gray armor of a free company scavenger, and in his left hand he held a curved blade with a serrated inner edge. The blade was pressed against the throat of a Felhuri child. Kale Vera was maybe 6 years old in Felhuri terms, equivalent to a human child of 9 or 10. His fur was the color of autumn wheat, his wide amber eyes were glassy with terror, and his small hands gripped the raider's wrist without the strength to move it even a millimeter. His ears were flat against his skull. His tail was frozen rigid. The raider was speaking in clipped Berthaki dialect, too fast for the translation nodes to catch fully, but Mara's ears picked out enough. The merchant. The debt. Where is he? Tell me or I open you up. The cub couldn't answer. His voice had locked in his throat. Mara stepped into the alcove. Hey, she said. Just that. One word. Flat, calm, with the specific absence of emotion that her old squad commander had called the voice before the storm. The Berthaki's head turned. His yellow eyes found her, a human female, medium height, no visible weapons, dressed in a worn cargo jacket and scuffed boots. He read her the way most species read humans, soft, hairless, fragile. A nuisance. Something to be dismissed or stepped on. He made a sound that translated roughly as, walk away, pinkskin. This doesn't involve your kind. The kid makes it my kind, Mara said, and took one step forward. The raider's blade pressed tighter. Kale made a sound like a reed instrument played wrong, high, and broken. Most creatures would have stopped there. Most creatures understood the logic of leverage. Blade at throat meant compliance, meant negotiation, meant the holder of the blade controlled the situation. Most creatures who faced a Berthaki raider in a dark alcove with no backup and no weapons would have backed away, hands raised, heart hammering. Mara Ellison had grown up on a mining colony on the edge of the Karath expanse, where the nearest law enforcement was 4 hours away by shuttle and disputes got settled by whoever was still standing. She had spent 8 years in the Frontier Auxiliary before the injury that grounded her. She had been in 6 situations exactly like this one. She had never backed away from a single one. Here's what happens next, she said, still walking forward, slow and steady, like gravity. You have 2 options. Option 1, you put that blade down, you walk out of this station, and you live to collect whatever debt your boss is owed through legal channels. She paused. Option 2 is worse for you. The Berthaki laughed, a grating, clicking sound deep in his chest. You are one human. Unarmed. I have a hostage, Mara said. I know. That's the only reason we're still talking. She was close now. 3 meters. Close enough to see the moisture on Kale's fur where tears had tracked down his face. Close enough to see the exact angle of the blade. The raider moved fast, they always did, the ones who'd been in enough fights to know that hesitation killed. He swung the blade away from the cub's throat, a sweeping arc meant to catch Mara across the forearm, drive her back, re-establish the fear. Mara wasn't there. She had already stepped inside the arc. What followed lasted approximately 4 seconds. It was not elegant. It was not the choreographed combat of holodramas. It was a human woman applying 30 years of accumulated survival knowledge with absolute efficiency, a palm strike to the nerve cluster beneath the Brathaki's jaw, a pivot that used his own momentum to drag his blade arm past her, an elbow to the back of his knee joint that dropped 7 feet of scaled mercenary to the floor like something had cut his strings. The blade clattered away into the shadows. Mara planted her knee in the raider's back, pulled his arm up at an angle that made further movement inadvisable, and held. Option 2, she said, a little breathless, involves you explaining to station security why a licensed child protection advocate had to put you on the ground. Which means your free company license gets flagged, which means your boss has to answer questions, which means whoever hired your boss is going to be very unhappy with you specifically. She leaned down. Are we done? The Brathaki was still. His chest heaved. She could feel the tension in his arm, the calculus happening behind those yellow eyes, weighing options, finding them all bad. Done, he said, in clipped trade tongue. Mara stood. She kept herself between him and the cub as he pulled himself upright, retrieved nothing from the ground, and walked, not ran, walked, because he had enough pride left for that, out of the alcove and back into the market noise. She turned around. Kale Vera was pressed against the wall, his small body still trembling, amber eyes enormous. His ears had come up slightly, from flat terrified to something uncertain. He was looking at her the way prey animals looked at something they couldn't classify. Not predator. Not prey. Other. Mara crouched down to his eye level. Hey, she said again, softer this time. What's your name? The cub's mouth worked. Kale. Kale. Good name. She didn't reach for him. She had learned, years ago, that you never reached for a frightened Felhuri child, you waited, still and patient, and let them come to you. Are you hurt? He shook his head. Small, uncertain motion. Good. She stayed crouched, unhurried. Is there someone here at the market who knows you? A parent, a merchant, someone I can take you to? My uncle, Kale whispered. Stall 42. Yareth cloth. Okay. She stood slowly, and held out her hand, not grabbing, just offering. I'll walk you there. He stared at her hand for a long moment. His nostrils flared. Felhuri had excellent scent memory, she knew. He was cataloging her, filing her away somewhere in that instinct archive his species ran on. Then, very carefully, he put his small hand in hers. They walked through the market together, the human woman and the cat cub, through the noise and the light and the 10,000 ordinary moments of a station that had already forgotten the dark thing that nearly happened in an alcove by the water reclamation unit. At stall 42, a Felhuri male in late middle age looked up from his fabric displays and made a sound like a saw bark, crossing the distance in 3 strides to sweep Kale into his arms. He spoke fast in Felhuri dialect, and the translation node only caught fragments. Where were you? I was looking, I thought. Then he looked at Mara. In Felhuri culture, the bow was reserved for the old forms, gratitude too large for words. He was a merchant, a practical male, not given to ceremony. He bowed. Mara shook her head. He found his own way back, she said. I just walked with him. She picked up her cold cup of bitter drink from where she'd left it. The vendor had kept it for her, watching with bright, knowing eyes, and she went back to leaning against the support strut. The market at Velsheri station never truly slept. And in the dim blue hours, something kept watch over the small and the frightened and the ones who couldn't yet protect themselves. It didn't announce itself. It didn't ask for recognition. It just stayed.